Dear students, today we will discuss about one very important topics of entomology, and that is the types of insect antennae. As we know, antennae, this is a pair of organ, very important organ in the insects. Almost all insects, they have a pair of antennae, and antennae, this is one sense organ or olfactory organ, because their function is to take the sense of smell, means different types of odors it can sense. That is why they are known as olfactory organ. Let's discuss about the different types of antennae. The first type is cetaceous antennae. Why cetaceous? Because the structure of the antennae, it is bristle-like. So that is why this type of antennae is known as cetaceous antennae. And as you can see here in this figure, that the size of the segments decreases from base to apex. This is the base of the antennae, and towards the apex the size is decreasing. Though initially in the base the size is broader, and gradually it decreases towards the tip. So that is why this type of antennae, it is known as cetaceous antennae. For example, this is the example. We can identify that it is what? It is example of dragonfly. Now the second types of antennae. This is filiform antennae. Filiform, why filiform? The structure, it is thread-like. As we can see in this figure, this is almost thread-like structure. That is why this is called filiform antennae. And the segments are usually cylindrical. You can see the size of the segment, it is cylindrical, and segments remain same throughout. The thickness means from the base of the tip portion, the segment, this thickness, it is uniform. So that is why it is known as filiform antennae. For example, grasshopper. Grasshopper, it is one common example of filiform antennae. Next, moniliform antennae. Moniliform, why moniliform? Because the structure of the antennae, the segment structure, it is bedded or bedded like. That is why the antennae type, it is known as moniliform antennae. Segments are either globular or spherical with prominent constriction in between. For example, in case of termites. That means in case of termites, we can see these types of moniliform antennae. Next type is serrate antennae. By observing the figure, we can easily identify it. What is the characteristics? The characteristics are segments have short triangular projection. So you can see these are the projection. These are the projections. All the projections are triangular in shape. That is why this is serrate, saw-like, korotor nisina. Ami je kat kota korot, he korot khonor nisina. That is why it is known as serrate antennae. For example, in case of longicorn beetle, this is the example. In case of longicorn beetle, we can see serrate antennae. Next type is unipectinate antennae. Unipectinate, the meaning of the pectinate, it is comb-like. Comb means amar ei murar chuli je fonikhon, ei fonikhonor nisina. That is why this is unipectinate. Why uni? Because this projection, this teeth-like projection, long slender projections or processes are there, and this projection or processes are towards one side. That is why this is known as unipectinate. It means another one type we have unipectinate in case of sawfly. In case of sawfly, we can see these types of pectinate or unipectinate antennae. So this is bipectinate. Earlier it was unipectinate. Why? Because the projection was towards one side. That is why unipectinate. Now it is bipectinate. Why? You can see in this figure, the projections are towards two sides. For example, in case of silkworm. In case of silkworm, we can here in this figure, you can see very prominently that this is bipectinate antennae. Next type is clavehead. Clavehead antennae. What is the characteristic? Antennae enlarges gradually towards the tip. Gradually towards the tip. That means from the base, in the base, it is slightly narrower, and gradually it it is broader in shape towards the tip of the antennae. That is why it is known as clavate antennae, clubbed like. That is why clavate antennae. So in case of blister beetle, here in this case we can see clavate antennae. Next type is capitate antennae. Capitate antennae knob like. You can see very prominently in this figure. Here in this example is butterfly. In case of butterfly, these capitate antennae are found. Characteristics: terminal segments become enlarged suddenly. So gradually in the tip region, from here to here, all segments are almost uniform. But at the tip region, you see the tip segment, it is enlarged. That is why knob-like. That is why it is known as capitate antennae. Next type is lamellate antennae, plate-like or leaf-like. That is why lamellate antennae. So here, antennal tip is expanded laterally on one side to form flat plates. For example, lamellicorn beetle. Lamellicorn, the name, it is only because of the presence of lamellate antennae. That is why, that means leaf-like. At the tip region, all the segments are leaf-like or plate-like. That is why the antennae type, it is known as lamellate antennae. This is another type. It is aristate antennae. So here in this figure, we can see very clearly that the terminal segment, it is very enlarged, and the terminal segment having one arista or one hair-like structure. So that is why it is known as aristate antennae. The main character is the terminal segment is enlarged. It bears a conspicuous dorsal bristle called arista. Bristle means hair-like structures it has. And the common example is housefly. Next type is stylet. So this is the figure of the stylet antennae. Here the terminal segment bear a style-like process. For example, in case of horsefly or rover fly, this is rover fly, where we can see this type of antennae. It is stylet antennae. Now this is another type, plumose antennae. As we know, the mosquito, mainly the male mosquito, they are having these types of plumose antennae. And by observing this antennae, plumose antennae, or another type, there is another type, it is known as pilose antennae. So whether it is pilose or plumose, depending on the presence of this type, we can identify what is the sex of that particular mosquito, male or female. In case of male mosquito, we can see plumose antennae, where the segments with long hold of hairs, that means the hairs we can see these are very dense. খুব বেছি পৰিমাণৰ এনেকুৱা চুলি নিচিনা থাকিব, dense hairs like this structures are there. So that is why it is known as plumose antennae. Now second type of antennae, it is pilose. In case of female mosquito, we can see these types of antennae, which is known as pilose, hairy antennae, hairy, but hairs are not very dense as it was in the plumose antennae. And antennae is less feathery, with few hairs at the junction of the flagellomodes. Next type is geniculate or elbow-like. The structure, as we see, it is almost like our elbow. That is why geniculate antennae. It can be seen in case of ant, or a very common example is honeybee. In case of honeybee, the antennae type, it is geniculate. So these are all about the different types of antennae. I think everybody, you have understand about different types. So thank you for today. Thank you so much.